Welcome back to another episode of The Rundown. Myself, Joseph Nagy, Brandon Worth, also in this call. We got a good episode for you. You got Tiger Baseball coming fresh off the All-Star break, and we talk about that as well as post-98 baseball and Rubberducks, Lumberjacks, a little bit of everything going on, and we are excited to bring it to you. But Brandon, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Feeling about 7 years younger, which you can tell by the appearance of my face, but we are feeling youthful and ready to rock and roll today. We got a good episode for you guys.
Yeah, it got me a little nervous. I didn't realize that was you at first when I saw you in the office today with that freshly shaven face, but it does look good. Hopefully, you found time to kind of toss in this episode in between you playing NCAA college football. I know that's what I've been doing, but let's get right into it, Brandon. I think we should start off with the Rubber Ducks. Is that good with you?
Do it.
Yes, sir. So not too bad. They've lost the last two games on the 18th. That was yesterday that we're recording this. Going to try to get this out on Friday night. But lost last two games. Linwood, a 3-6 loss, and then a tough 0-14 loss against Berry Hill, which is kind of unfortunate because they were on a little bit of a two-game heater with the offense starting to pick up. But those two games were just a tough notch in the columns.
Yeah, Berry Hill is the favorite really in zone four, I think, based on the information that we've gotten. And it's certainly, you can see why. I mean, this game was very much a one-sided affair, but I did think you saw some good things overall. I mean, you have some really good arms on the other side. Cole Heist had a little bit of his struggles, but I think when you really look at it, that's a really tough team. And especially when you look at the outlook of zone four, that's the team you're going through, but you can still get in, right? You can still perform well. You just got to outperform one team and to get yourself in position. And that's going to be a really big opportunity for the next Tuesday. But that Berry Hill game, not much to talk about there. It was just really Berry Hill dominating as they've done for the last couple of years. And then Linwood, obviously, that was a really close game. I think that could have definitely went either direction. I mean, it was a 4-0 game at one point. Then the Ducks came back, made it a 1-run game. Ended up giving two runs up and then pretty much kind of fell a little off the end. They're kind of teetered away. So they were in the running. They were in position to win that game. But I think you just look at where they were in the spare of the moment. Linwood was really good with the bats. They were able to score the runs. The Ducks really stranded quite a few runners, and I think that was a really big part of it. But I do think there were some really good performances off of this game. I mean, Ty Gilstrap was awesome. He had 3 hits and 4 at-bats, including 2 RBIs. You saw some good overall base running from the bottom of the order, able to score some runs, which was huge there, especially in that 4th inning. But I think the outlook is good for this team. Obviously, 2 losses right away. Getting into zone 4 play is not ideal, but they're going to play a post 110 team that presents some challenges, but is a team that they really have an opportunity to bounce back against. And I think when you look at the overall outlook, if they can get and split one of those games, and especially try to see if they can even get a sweep, that's going to put them in great position. So maybe it's just getting the weekend off, getting a little refresher, being able to get some of the arms back and ready, I think will be a really big thing for this team, especially. But there's still a lot of time, and I think post 10, especially when you look at some of the games earlier on this year, there's definitely some opportunity there. I mean, we saw them play 3 games there in Mount Pleasant. They lost 8-0, 6-0, but then they started to figure it out. They only lost 5-2. And some teams they've beaten have beat post 110. So the opportunity is definitely there to see if they can bounce back.
Yeah, that's big time. And, gotta kind of get it going, especially with, I think, only like 7 days left in the season. I think next Friday is going to be the start of that Legion State tourney. So it's going to be a little bit of a kind of, I guess, like a finding yourself moment when you have these 2 games that you drop. You just need to make sure that you're ready to go for this weekend, especially on the 23rd against Post 110, and then make sure that you're just got everybody ready on the same page for that Legion State tournament, because there's going to be some good teams all around that have been making some noise, and especially with the players that we got. I think we got a good, solid chance at it, but it's definitely going to be tough, especially because with summer ball, we know these are the guys that love to play the game, and when you have that love to play the game, it's a lot harder to play those teams because you got guys who want to be there. But I like our chances, like I said, and we're going to see how it plays out upcoming next week.
Yeah, should be really fun. We can't wait to root for these guys, and especially when it comes to the Legion State tourney. Once it gets in, it gets real. And obviously zone 4 with the most teams out of all of the state, it is the toughest, but at the end of the day, there's great opportunity there to be able to keep moving on. And especially when you can get past this round, the road's going to get a little bit easier for you, I think, especially. So I think that's kind of a motivator for this group. Then get to round 1, they have a good chance in rounds 2, round 3, and so on and so forth, to keep going in the tournament. But it starts one game at a time, and this team certainly has shown those glimpses, those really good games when everybody's together and everything's clicking. But then in some other games, it's kind of just fell apart a little bit. They're playing a little bit under their overall ability to play well. So they're going to need to be on a really good streak going into that Legion tournament. It's going to start next Tuesday. So they're going to have to put every foot forward and see if they can get themselves in position.
Absolutely. Now we'll switch over to the Lumberjacks. Solid showing, kind of a bounce back. They lost 4 in a row against Wyoming on that July 13th, July 14th, but then finally coming back, I think, 2 days ago on the 17th when they had that midweek game in Wyoming. They beat them 3-2. So a nice solid bounce back for them. They do have the Ottawa County A's coming up tomorrow at 1 and 3 if you want to go see that over at Big Rapids High School. And they have, I believe, their last game of July on the 21st. So this weekend's going to kind of be the wrap up for them. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see. And I'm glad that they were able to get that bounce back because they were kind of struggling with the bats just a little bit after that. But they've just been playing the Nationals so much that it's kind of tough to get any type of differentials when you have to play that many teams in a row.
It's so hard. And especially when you play the same team over and over again, once you get on a momentum streak, it's really hard to put the fire out, right? And that's exactly what Wyoming did in that weekend. They took that first Saturday game. It was an absolute nail biter. It's a 1-0 game, and then they were just able to really take that momentum from there. They win 2-1, they win 7-4, and they win 5-4. Thankfully, Lumberjacks really dug in, and they were able to get out on top and really kind of stuff that momentum, which is huge because the Nationals, when you look in the terms of the standings, I mean, they're right in the thick of it, right? That's a team that you know that you have to beat if you want to keep moving it forward in the Shoreline League in the postseason. That's a team you're going to have to beat, right? And they've proven that they can beat them. But I think when it comes to the Lumberjacks, they're in these games, and that's a really good sign. But the unfortunate thing is they just can't find that way to get over the hump, right? They've had good pitching. Sometimes the bats have struggled. And sometimes when they're getting those bats going, their defense is giving up a little bit more runs. And that's a tough thing to deal with, right? You have to be able to put the pedal down, have a good outing on the mound or in defensively, and then be able to hit the ball. Because if you can do that together in one game, that's going to give you a much better chance of winning. But especially when you look at Wyoming, they're such a good offensive team, right? They're number 2 in runs scored, only trailing, I believe, the Kalamazoo County Royals as far as runs scored. But they also take care of it defensively, and that's something that really stood out, and that's why they're at the top of the league. Is they're able to score runs and they're able to allow less runs all in the same outing. That's important. If you can show each side together, that's important. Right now, the Lumberjacks are doing a little bit of this split where it kind of goes either way, teeter-totter. So if they can put their foot down, and maybe that's where the postseason will come into play, there may maybe a little more sense of urgency. Not saying that these guys aren't just playing relaxed out there. Hopefully they're playing at least a little bit with pressure, but also a little bit relaxed as well, knowing the magnitude of the league and trying to do the best they can. But it's going to be a really big opportunity. Ottawa County is a team that they can beat not once, not twice, 3, 4 times. They know that they can beat Ottawa County. They had struggles earlier on this season, kind of a couple slip-ups. This is a really big opportunity to take that step forward when you got the teams like the Brewers that are within striking distance. Anything can happen this weekend standings-wise. The Nationals, even the Nationals might slip up, right? So there's opportunity being only 2 games back entering the last week of the regular season. So really big opportunity for this group, and we'll see what they do.
Yeah, absolutely. The one big thing too is just making sure, like you said, defensively, got to lock it down. There's a few games so far this year. If you look back, they've kind of given up those double-digit runs because when you look at the stats too, they are pretty solid. I mean, 13-9-2 is a pretty respectable record, and they've been able to take care of it. But when you look at it, they still have less runs for than runs against. There, it's about a 5-run differential. But you look at it, I think the Brewers put up 13 on them or 16, and then the Royals earlier on too put up 19. So it's a tough spot to be in, and they just got to make sure not to kind of have those slip-ups, especially later on this season, because this is kind of when it starts to get a little bit tough. The weather's getting a little bit hotter. You're out there, baseball pants, it might get a little bit more of a fatigue factor. So just got to make sure that you lock it in and stay focused throughout the whole way. But I think, especially seeing how well they've been able to do and get that bounce back win against the Nationals. They got a great opportunity, like you said, Brandon, against the A's, because this is 4 games that are very winnable, and those are valuable, especially this late season. You don't really get that situation too many times across all levels, and you got to make sure you take the most of it when it's given to you. So we'll see how it plays out for them. Obviously, we're in their corner. They're going to be playing, like I said, in Big Rapids, 1 and 3 on both days. So tomorrow, the 20th, and then Sunday, the 21st. If you want to go out there, there's some great baseball to be watched, and it's going to be a good time. Maybe we'll be out there. I don't know, Brandon. I don't know what your plans are, but I might try to see if I can sneak in that Sunday games because summer baseball, it's a fun thing to watch.
So yeah, it'll be very interesting. Obviously, these close games will be fun to watch, and we look forward to seeing what these guys do. And it'd be great to see a Big Rapids team be able to move their way up and show they're great in the state. Give West and Central Michigan a little bit of love, and tell a little bit of the state that we know some ball and we can play some ball too.
Absolutely. That's what we're looking forward to. But that's kind of it for the local scene. And hopefully you can get out there and watch. Going to be some good baseball being played. We're going to hop now into the professional side. Detroit now going into the second half of the season after the All-Star break. Riley Green, Tarik Skubal representing the Tigers over there in Texas for the All-Star game. I got to start off this kind of talk, Brandon, with saying, Tarik was snubbed. He should have been the AL starter. He's the favorite right now for the Cy Young. I think if you saw a Skeens Tarik kind of battle in those first innings, it would have been must-watch TV. But he didn't get the start. He still went out, did pretty solid, but wish he would have been able to get the bump and get the ball in the first inning.
Yeah, I was bummed too. And at the end of the day, Bruce Bucci is the guy that did make the selection, did make the decision. And of course, it's up to him at the end of the day. It is unfortunate because, Skubal is the best pitcher in the American League. Corbin Burns has done great. Don't get me wrong. The dude is a stud. He is definitely the solidified number 2. But Skubal has been just a titch better statistically, and not even just statistically, but also performance in the human eye. So it's unfortunate as a Tigers fan because, of course, we want to soak in all the moments of glory that we can. And Tarik Skubal has provided that for us. And hopefully he will continue to do that and not be shipped somewhere, as all the rumors that I'm hearing. We'll talk about that in a minute. But it's going to be very fun. We come back. We're going to Toronto. We're going to Cleveland. These are 2 games, 2 series right out of the gate, right? These are both really good teams. I mean, you look at Toronto, they're a 44-win club. They have a losing record, and they're a couple games under us, but they got some pops in the bats as well. So they're going to be a test, especially playing at the Rogers Center, playing in the Dome, playing in Canada. Always presents its challenges in consideration of travel and environment. And then you go right back to the team that you were in a dogfight with near the All-Star break in the Cleveland Guardians, a division rival. So it's going to be a really fun, fast, and furious start here for the Detroit Tigers' second half of the season. And we just hope and pray that they can get some of that fire, some of that momentum going into the All-Star break, and they can just really pick up and keep this rolling.
Yeah, we're going to see how it plays out. Definitely hoping that we can get some wins here because that's going to be much needed. I think, what are we at right now for wins? Are we at 47-50? So if we can get this series and lock that in, I mean, that's going to be a nice back to 500 situation. And that's going to set us up pretty solid for the second half of the season in the AL Central. But I'm talking about, especially with that Tarik thing that you're saying, don't want him to get shipped off. The big thing right now, especially with, trades and stuff happening, everybody is hoping, from what I've seen on, forums, Reddit, Instagram, a lot of people are hoping that Tarik stays and that we don't make some dumb ideas and ship him off. We need to be buyers at this trade deadline and at the end of free agency. But, if Tarik gets traded, I will be very angry. I'll be honest with you. But Brandon, what are your thoughts on that whole situation, and especially what should the Tigers be doing for this trade deadline?
Yeah, and we talked about it a little bit. I think it was last episode, but 2 episodes ago, where we kind of heard the initial rumors that Tarik Skubal was put in the window shopping. Other teams were to see if he was available. And it is frustrating because I think the whole city of Detroit can come together and say, we want Tarik Skubal there. We want to see him in an Old English D and continue to do so because of how good he's been and how representative he's been with the city. He's really embraced it and he's done well. And I think that the biggest thing at the trade deadline, the Tigers need bats, and there's no doubt about it. They need bats, and preferably young, explosive bats. Wyatt Langford would be a guy that you'd be like, oh yeah, that'd be a great ad, but Texas is not going to trade
No,
him.
they're not.
That'd
They're
be
not
like
letting
us
him
trading
go.
Colt Keith. That would be pointless. So you're going to be looking for some guys that are probably younger, probably not necessarily going to be looking for some older guys in their last year of their contracts. You're not going to see some of the veterans really kind of available in the Tigers' eyes. Maybe some other teams that are chip chasing, for example. Maybe Cleveland is one of those teams. Maybe you're looking at some other teams potentially that are in the postseason hunt, maybe like Philly, maybe some of those other teams as well. Pittsburgh might be a team like that. So those teams might be more on the lookout for those older veteran guys to kind of give that last boost if they're going to make a serious run. But the Tigers, I think they need to look a little bit younger because this is still a rebuild, even though we don't want to say it. Scott Harris is still rebuilding this club. And I think Tarik Skubal is a guy that needs to stay. And I understand 100% the reasoning of why you'd want to trade him. I totally get it. There's so much in return. It can really be that championship turning move if it works. But my argument is the downside of it not working is more damaging than if it does work. And I think the risk is way too high on that end of the spectrum as opposed to the other end if it does go well, because we've seen this happen before. We've seen them dismantle a team. I mean, we're talking the early 2010s into the 2015, 16, 17 years, our last years with Leland and Osmus, where we had a loaded all-star caliber roster. And then once it was dismantled, there was just really nothing to look at. There really was nothing on the field that was able to pick up wins. And they relied a lot on small ball, team ball, which is great. But with a lot of unexperienced younger guys, it's hard to do. It's really a mental thing at the end of the day. And they don't play baseball very well. They can't afford to play baseball that way if they want to be a playoff caliber team. So they're going to have to build some of those young core. It might be trading a couple of these veterans potentially at the trade deadline, trying to get some young bats, maybe some other draft picks as well, because we still have a lot of farm players that will be coming up here. We'd love to see a potential really. I think we need to see a debut of Jackson Jobe in the next year, if not early next year, just to see what he can do at the top level, which he continues to move up. We want to see Max Clark get up very soon. If he gets up to single A so he can play in Comstock Park, that'd be great. But he's still got a couple of things he's working on as well. We'd love to see Torque back into old Torque mode. We've talked about that plenty of times though. So there's a lot of promise. There's just consistency issues with these young bats. And I think maybe not necessarily adding a full veteran, but maybe a little bit of an inexperienced veteran, you could say, somebody that's been in the league a year, 2, 3 years that maybe hasn't popped off. He's put off decent numbers, but maybe it's just a change of scenery. Maybe it's just a change in structure, change in training regimen, change in location. So yeah, I think they're going to be looking more at those, first, second, third year guys that might not be popping off, maybe kind of like a Spencer Torkelson, but trying to get them into a new setting, because that's sometimes all it needs, right? Maybe it's a new training regimen, a new roster, a new type of strategy, something along those lines might be the answer. So maybe they start looking at that direction, or a younger guy. I don't anticipate they're going to be trying to bring in a 10-year veteran, some of these guys in their last couple of years of their contracts, but you never know. So I think they'll be looking more younger to try to keep that core. But there's one thing that's for sure. Riley Green and Tarik Skubal, as well as some of these other guys like Colt Keith and company, need to stay on this roster. It's tempting to trade, but you don't want to play this guessing game on one prospect maybe not working and then have another chance for 3 of them. I remember looking back today at some of the infamous trades that we made, including the JT Martinez trade for guys like Jose King that were supposed to be the answer. And Joe Space says it all. It didn't work out, and we don't want to see that again.
Yeah, we don't want to see that again. And it's tough because with this team still being, I would say we're like halfway through the rebuild phase right now. It's not anything that's like the end is not in sight just yet, but you still have a chance to, make some noise because you still have a lot of guys in the farm system. And like you were saying, all those names that could potentially be traded away. But the big thing is, please keep Tarik. He's really the only thing that keeps us, happy to be Tigers fans at this point. And if you trade him away, it's just going to be a massive, massive blow because, like you said, Brandon, the possibility of us being terrible after is very great. And the possibility of us being good or just the same after is not as good because we take out our ace, and that's going to be tough because now we're going to have, somebody else step up to that situation. I just don't think we have anybody there. So we're going to see how it plays out. I think if they do, You're going to see Jeff Greenberg probably have his head taken off by Detroit because everybody's going to be super mad, but we'll see how it plays out. But I'm glad you brought up Max Clark, because if he comes to West Michigan, Brandon, we're going to have to maybe take a trip over there and see the young phenom play, because he is a very highly touted prospect in the system. But yeah, big thing. Please don't trade Tarik, because that will make us all very sad. But that's just how it's going to go. So we're going to be on pins and needles for sure. But Brandon, I think that's it for the episode this week. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Big thanks to Michigan ADAS, Calibrations and Glass, everything that you need, all making models. Great sponsor of the show. And we look forward to all of the great things coming up here. Joe and I have been talking, guys. We're going to be starting CSA football previews, and I know you guys are very excited about that. So football season's around the corner, Joe. We have college football 25. We almost have the Division I season opening. NFL training camp starting, and high school sports are in full swing for the fall, coming up with practices. It's coming, and we're excited. It's going to be a blast.
This is going to be huge. All right. We are very excited for everything coming up, but that's it for the episode. Hopefully you have a good weekend. Stay safe out there. We love you. Appreciate you. We'll see you next week.
Peace.